You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host, Lucy Norris, and on today's episode, I'm sitting down with the founder of Duco, a performance apparel made from ocean plastics and organics. As a young child, this week's guest had a natural talent for entrepreneurship. Reminiscing on his first business venture at just 7 years old, he held on to that creative spirit throughout his school years and has never looked back. Going indoor rock climbing one day with his best friend led him to stumble on his current entrepreneurial idea after realizing the clothing worn for the sport could do with a bit of an upgrade. Starting with just £25, he could never have foreseen his sustainable clothing brand would now be valued at £2 million and be supplying the official kit of Great Britain's Olympic climbing team. To share his experience, here's what it's like to be Kieran Miles. We are here to chat about you today and the incredible things that you've been doing. So before we get into any of the nitty-gritty about, your current business and all that kind of stuff, I want to hear more about you and your journey with entrepreneurism. So take me all the way back to when you were growing up, when you were in school, when you first discovered this need or want to create things for yourself from scratch.
To think of that kind of far back, I think the earliest point where I was kind of creating was probably when I was around 6 or 7, and it was with my best friend who we had decided to break twigs off a tree and sellotape grass around those twigs and sell them to our next door neighbor with obviously the help of our parents. We weren't sort of that rogue, as kind of small brushes.
Oh.
But there isn't actually a market for a brush that makes more mess than it clears up. Turns out,
Yeah.
But I think that was probably a very early memory. But in terms of, I guess, true serious entrepreneurship, I was the kid at school that was selling sweets and tennis balls and Coca-Cola and all of that kind of stuff. And it was I don't know, it was just a way to make extra pocket money to buy comic books and sweets and football boots, I guess. When I left school, or as I was leaving, I had an eBay shop and I was selling things. I'd go to a car boot sale, purchase items at a car boot sale on my bicycle, cycle home, put them on my dad's eBay account. And that was kind of, I didn't have my own account. It was back then when eBay, you needed sort of verifications and bank, all of this kind of stuff. And then from there I went to college. And when I was at college, I studied a course that my best friend was doing, purely because he was my best friend and he said he was doing it. So I thought, well, why not? And it was a business and retail course. And whilst I was doing this course, I wanted to make friends and I wanted to do something interesting. And one of the things that I then decided to do was to hire out a nightclub to throw a party, because I thought, well, if you throw a party, then people, you can be the party guy. And because it cost so much to do, and I'd pretty much put my savings into it that I had at the time, I thought, well, I'd better sell some tickets to it. And before we knew it, we had 1,000 few people a time turning up to these events, and we were doing 8 a year, and they turned into sort of a big thing locally where I was from. And I just liked the buzz of it. I liked the joy. Then I got into radio. So whilst I was an entrepreneur in residence at the college I had just left, so I was appointed entrepreneur in residence, because what I didn't mention was, as I finished college, after I had quit twice, I wrote to the principal and said the course wasn't very good. I didn't like it, and it didn't help with my entrepreneurial skills. And a cheeky little kid I was, but still, he invited me in to talk, and we chatted about what entrepreneurship meant to me and what business and business courses kind of could be. And as a result, he made me the entrepreneur in residence, which meant that I had the opportunity to go across the college and understand areas that we could be enterprising. And as a result of that led me on to seeing a radio station, which was essentially a radio facility within the college that was used for about 4 or 5 hours a week by 2 or 3 students. It wasn't kind of over capacity. And I just thought, how cool would it be to run a radio station? And that was literally my thought process. So I pitched the idea to the principal and said, could I turn it to commercial station? And then before we knew it, we had a commercial station, which was selling advertisements. It was employing students to gain skills alongside their qualification. And I thought, well, if I could do it in one college, then maybe there's a chance I could do it in another. So I went on this kind of roadshow across 227 other colleges across the UK, including Scotland, Ireland and Wales, and obviously a majority in England. And we had 16 full-time staff based out of a shed in a place called Norwich, where I'm from. And me and my kind of business partner at the time, a friend from school, we had this idea of just changing media and changing education. And we developed this kind of media player similar to what you would class as the BBC, the BBC iPlayer now. And this was before it was invented. But we were running this national radio stream out of a shed that we'd bought from a DIY store because it was the easiest and cheapest way to kind of soundproof a studio without spending, thousands and thousands and thousands. So we were always hustling. I was about 20, between 20 and 22 at the time. So then I exited that business and got into management consultancy. I was asked if I could consult on a number of projects, which I started to do. And I, went through this journey of just being, I guess, dabbling into different things that I thought were interesting or I thought were exciting. And then one day my best friend and I were indoor rock climbing. It was something that we just got into because it was in the city and, it was something different to do. Mm-hmm. And we loved the sport, but we didn't like the clothes. So we thought, how do we change the clothes for us? So we started with £25 and we printed 2 t-shirts onto organic cotton. The logo was my handwriting vectorized. And before we knew it, people were interested in purchasing these clothes. Where did we get them from? How do we get them? And as a result, we started to invest our time and cash into how do we make more clothes. So as a result, we then found out about sustainable fashion, environmental fabrics, ethical manufacturing. And I must be honest, I wasn't really aware of the damage that the fashion industry was doing to the world. I was kind of ignorant to that, which inspired me to then think, how do we really try and solve this problem? Because essentially we're going to be a little bit of a part of it by creating more garments. So how do we do that more sustainably whilst also solving this problem? And that's when we invested into environmental materials, ocean plastic waste, seaweeds, bamboos, all of these different incredible materials. In 2019, we provided the GB climbing team kit for their kind of world tour and Tokyo 2020 qualifiers, which was incredible, or Tokyo 2021 / potentially 2022 qualifiers.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? And it was just an amazing experience. We kind of plowed all of our cash in. We then went out to raise money. And as a result of that, we then developed a retail range, which we could sell. So that kind of brings us in a very quick stop tour. And I guess as a brief overview, that's kind of Duco.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to dissect within that, which I'm excited to do. But I think it's so incredible to hear how many industries you've kind of dipped your toes in, and how much experience you would have as a result of that, and kind of diversity, which I'm sure helped with building this new business. First of all, I think I'm always so intrigued by co-founders that were once friends before, because there's so much thoughts on working with friends, mixing business with your social life and things like that. So let's start by discussing that a bit, and your decision to go into business with your best friend and how those dynamics kind of played out.
It's a great question. It's a really good question. We set out a very clear mission and a very clear set of values, our guiding stars for the brand. our first and foremost, our mission, which is the same mission as it is today, is to climb higher. And for us, that means to do things that are always going to better ourselves and one another. Along that process, we develop these values around friends first and around that kind of collaboration, that connectivity, what it meant to us. And I guess what was very clear when the times of struggle came, and that might have been conversations that we both thought, yeah, I want to take it this way, he wants to take it that way. With the moments we were butting heads, we reflected back to those guiding lights, those guiding stars. We did in late 2019. We did decide actually we were going to kind of part ways from a business perspective, because there were pressures that were going to affect our friendship. So we were in a position where there were so many affecting factors on our lives, on the company. We had delays in factories. We had challenges in our personal lives. We had so much pressure with the Team GB kit. We had so much pressure with fundraising, and we were just at each other's throats. And we had a very clear moment where we both said, it's either our friendship or the business type thing, that's, and we're still friends today. So we chose friendship. But I must admit, there definitely were times when it was tough. But I will say as well, for reference, I've had conversations with VCs that you only want to back co-founded businesses. And I think a co-founder is incredibly important, but I think as you kind of said, working with your friend or starting with your best friend is a very different dynamic.
Yeah, for sure. Because I can imagine that. I get the whole thought process behind wanting two people. It maybe appears a bit more stable than just putting all your faith into one person in terms of venture capitalist backing. But I also see the argument of, if you're going to start something with your best friend, it's going to come from a place of passion, and it's going to come, from this thing that the two of you just want to work on together because you really believe in your idea. So I suppose there's that balance between trying to find a co-founder that also shares the vision, and you're not just in it because you both know in order for this to get money and things like that, there needs to be two of us, versus obviously dealing with all the pressures that come with being founders of a business and then also being friends, as you demonstrated there. But I'm glad to hear that you guys worked it out and you're still friends. That's always nice.
Yeah, definitely. But we had to be real. We had to be real about it,
Mm-hmm.
And I think often that's probably where people what they maybe fail, or their friendships don't survive. Because we really did I can remember the conversation, I can remember the hearts to heart we were having, and it was too important. The idea was important, but our friendship was far more important.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, were you perhaps more of the leading, not like brain behind it, but how come, I suppose, you were the one that stayed in the business and he was the one that decided to take a step back?
Another great question. We both decided that this was something that I could probably continue with, and it was the right time for him to stop and to try something else. We were in a position where the business couldn't afford to have us both. The business couldn't continue financially if we were, it wasn't a lifestyle kind of company. It wasn't something that was flooded with investor cash. It wasn't flooded with, we didn't have huge amounts. We were scrapping and we were scraping. So yeah, we both decided that it was the right time. And because I'd been in startups before, and because I've had the fight before, I guess I possibly was a little bit, I could appreciate the stresses that you go through. So yeah.
Yeah. And even just hearing your kind of portfolio before, I would assume, it kind of made sense. But I suppose the other aspect of your business that I really like and I want to chat more about is the sustainability element to it. And I think that was kind of something that you guys identified by the sounds of it really quickly, and a smart move from all aspects. And then I suppose number one, saving the planet, which we all want to help to do. But I can imagine there was some big challenges in terms of sourcing ocean plastic to turn into materials and things like that, as opposed to just going down, I don't want to say easy, I'm using easy with quotation marks here, but go to just a manufacturer, tell them what you're doing, and just have them bang out some gear. So talk me through that process, what that was like, and the challenges that came up with wanting to go that route.
So I'll start with, it was really important for us to go down that route because I don't think it would have been fair for us to bring to the planet another brand that two guys felt was needed because we just felt something didn't represent us, without, in a very, very kind of picky sense. We felt there was a gap in the market. We felt there was an opportunity. But if we treated it just like another t-shirt brand that you see popping up on Instagram every day, then we're not adding any value to the world. So when we took the leap to turn it into something more than just us two, and we'd understood more about the industry itself and what the kind of the water consumption looks like to make a pair of jeans and all of this kind of stuff, and some of the facts and figures that are kind of widely accessible on the internet now, that's when we knew that if we needed to do anything, it needed to be down the sustainable route. It needed to be ethically manufactured. We needed to ensure that, we were looking at the whole process, the whole supply chain from delivery to offsetting everything. The process we then went about in terms of sourcing was very difficult. There are global manufacturing fairs, trade fairs that so there's one in Munich. I went along to there. There's halls which are like aircraft hangars, and there are thousands of stalls in there trying to sell you their wares. And I remember the first time I went along to this and I had no idea what I was doing. I'm not from a fashion background. I have no idea about making clothes. I don't really understand, I didn't at the time. So I've gone into this place and I'm speaking to all of these factories, and they're all very quick to give you a pack and give you a pack and give you a pack and talk you through the fabric. And I remember the first night I came back to the hotel and I had all of these fabric samples, and I was looking at them all and I was thinking, I genuinely don't know what to do next with all of this. There were minimum runs of like 10,000 meters or X or whatever. And for reference, it's huge amounts for a startup. It's like me preparing to make 50,000 garments instead of like 200. So I thought, well, maybe I'm in the wrong place because maybe this is the big trade guys. Maybe I need to go back local. So that evening I was going through all the local, I say like companies in England, in Scotland, about that would manufacture in the manufacturing hubs. I was calling them up, is there a chance I could get, what sort of stuff do you do? No sustainable, no sustainable, no sustainable. I struggled to find sustainable brands in Britain at the time that would make fabric. The next day I went kind of around this trade fair, and I bumped into a factory in Portugal, because they have like different countries and regions. And they said, right, we do short run, which was great. They'll do recycled material, which was fantastic. And I looked to place an order. So about, I think maybe 2 months after that, went out to the factory, visited the factory, because I wanted to make sure that it was ethical labor. I wanted to make sure that it was, the good power sources. I wanted to audit it. I wanted to make sure it was exactly as they said. And we went to place this order. And just around that time, the Brexit vote happened. And then all of the prices went up and all of the runs went up. And they were like, we're not going to accept it unless you pay. I think it was about 4 times the amount.
Oh my God.
So like when you're a startup and when you're putting your savings into this, It was a colossal amount. And we just about got to the position where we were pitching for Team GB as well.
Okay.
So I knew in the back of my mind I needed a good supply chain, because if we win this, or in my heart I was like, when we win this, you know, I need garments. And I flew back from Portugal into London, and I went into this business lounge. Really random story. I sat down in this business lounge. I remember my laptop was in front of me, and I sat there with my head in my hands like this, and the guy sitting next to me said, "Oh, are you okay? Well, you look like you're having a tough day." And I said, "Yeah, do you know what?" And I can literally picture it right now. I said, "Yeah, do you know what? I've got this factory. I'm trying to make these garments, and it's just let me down, and I just don't know what to do. I'm pretty stuck." And then he was like, "Oh, well, my friend has a factory. They make sustainable clothes. They do short run. Why don't I put you guys in touch?" Within about 2 hours, I'm then chatting to these guys who've got a factory out in Vietnam, which are using sustainable material. They're sourcing all of this kind of stuff, and they can complete our order. Yeah, at that point, I am then off to China, and because they have a headquarters in Shanghai, so I'm off to China. I meet these guys. I go through all the certification. I want to make sure it's all fine. I go visit their factory. I see the factory. It's all great. Everyone's paid fairly. It's all, you know, I go see all the paperwork. And then there we are. We've got a factory. We've got fabric, and we're then starting to produce garments.
That's
yeah,
crazy.
I don't know. Did that answer your question? I'm not so sure.
Yeah, no, it did. I think the way, I don't know if it's the universe, fate, whatever it is, but the way things happen like that in such weird coincidences, it just blows my mind. I love that story about how, you know, you never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to chat to. And it's so important to, I suppose, be open in terms of that, because you could have just said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm fine," and gone back to your laptop, and then you would have never had your problem solved. So that's a pretty cool story. And so now you've sorted your factory, you've got that supply chain that you were mentioning, and you're going to go win this pitch with Team GB. So tell me more about that. I'm really excited to hear about how you did that and what your secrets to pitching are.
Wow. So I emailed the head of, I can't remember what the title was, but whoever was in charge of the kind of the kit. I emailed them probably about 7,000 times, or it certainly felt like that. And I had left, I don't know how many voicemails, countless voicemails. And all I was asking for was 15 minutes to just talk through the brand and share the brand. Now, in the UK, I'm based, so I live in a place called Norwich, which is in the east of England. And they are based up near Manchester. And, you know, it's a £140 sort of train ticket. It's a 4-hour drive. It's not just a quick drop in. So I knew if I could get 15 minutes that I needed to commit. And I eventually had a 15-minute meeting. It wasn't to pitch at all. So for any of the kit, it was just, could I show you the product? I went up to their office, and we had 15 minutes. We literally, we didn't have any more than that. It was 15 minutes. I went through the deck in terms of the clothing, the stuff we were making, the things that we were kind of engaged in, the stuff we were excited about. And I said, you know, I'd love to create a kit for you guys, and we could create whatever you want. We can be so creative about this. But if you give me the opportunity to come back with something, then, you know, then I will. And then, yeah, kind of, there's a series of procurement meetings. There's so many different sort of loops and sort of hoops you have to jump through and go through and all this kind of stuff, which happened over the course of, I think, about 2, maybe 3 months. We produced a kit, and yeah, then or it's sort of a sample, and then they said, yeah, you've got it. I remember the day of receiving that phone call. I went up for a meeting. There was a panel of 3. They asked me a load of questions. This was like the final meeting of like 4 or 5. I'd gone through the pitch deck, which I produced, I don't know how many times by this point, or it certainly felt like 100. And then I left, I got the metro to the main train station, and they said, as I left the meeting, you know, we'll call you in about 2 hours with the decision. And I was on the train and I was thinking, it's getting close to 2 hours. I haven't heard. 2 hours passed and I was thinking, it's not happening then, is it? It's not happening. And then I'm on this train from Manchester to Norwich, and it's notorious for poor signal. There's spots which have poor signal. And I'm thinking, maybe they can't get through, And I'm like, train Wi-Fi's down, and I'm just like refreshing my emails. And then, I think probably about half an hour, 45 minutes after they said they would, the email pops up and says, you're successful. This is what's going to happen. And that was an incredible moment.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, you can't really secure a bigger deal with that in terms of like a sportswear brand. It's pretty cool. And then, you're going to be in a way representing your country through your clothing whenever they travel and stuff. So congratulations, that's huge. It's so big. And so where do you go from there? I mean, what are your future goals and stuff? You're supplying to the Olympic team. So what are your next, I suppose, fences that you want to hit?
So when we delivered the Team GB kit for the GB climbing team kit for 2019, we came out of that year, as I said earlier, with a few changes that were going on. So that around our kind of makeup, friendship, all of that kind of stuff. There were things going on in our lives as well, lots of change. And we were looking at 2020 as a year to really embrace retail and to go forward with a new set of products and sort of hit that high. COVID came in, took everything away from us, absolutely wiped out of all of our plans, the events that we were sponsoring, the routes to market that we decided that we wanted to go down. And this year has been a time to reflect on all of that and really to pivot once again. So during this time, we've had the opportunity to develop products a little bit further. And that includes now vegan trainers, biodegradable glasses, sunglasses, using different fabrics for like cactus leathers and all different sorts of materials to make new products. So we diversified in our R&D sense and our product development sense. So therefore the plan is, as we now come out and come back through from COVID, Duco will sort of relaunch a little bit. It's not at the level and a retail front that I'd like it to be. We are stocked in Go Outdoors in their full portfolio across the UK as well, which is an outdoor leisure retailer. And the hope is that we keep pushing to take potentially more athletic teams, sponsor more athletes. But my main hope is that we continue to challenge brands that are separate to us, but to think slightly differently about how they can use sustainable materials. Because we came in as a startup straight off the bat saying we're going to kit out, a GB team. We're going to make sustainable clothes. We're going to not compromise on performance and use ethical and environmental manufacturing. I mean, we could do it. So why can't some of the big brands that have investment, that have resource? So I guess that's where our challenge, our kind of challenger nature comes in.
From where you're sitting now, and everything you've been through, I suppose, with all of your businesses before Duco as well, not forgetting, the success you've had there. What is your personal definition of success, and how do you view that as a metric? Do you view it as a metric? What's your feeling on that word?
If you would ask me this question 3 years ago, I possibly, or even 5 years ago, maybe more, I would have been putting financial targets on there. I'd say success is selling Duco for the 1.4 billion pounds that's in my head. I don't know. Success is this, success is that. But I experienced burnout. I experienced severe depression. I have experienced all of the lows that you can go through in those experiences to the very dark places. And I realized through those experiences as well that my view on success was was not aligned to who I am, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, the best way I can describe it was my previous view on success was a suit I was wearing, and not a physical suit, but an image. And now I view success very much as the value that I want to bring to the world. And I have a kind of a personal mission, which I think possibly is the only thing that I could probably link to your question around success, which is to elevate every day. So everything I do, I try and elevate. And that doesn't necessarily mean elevate myself. It means elevate communities that I'm working within, partners that I'm speaking to, colleagues. I just want to give something to the world that's bigger than me, rather than be something that's bigger than the world. And I think often people's view on success is that, rather than kind of where I'm at now. So but yeah, because of those experiences, I think I view it very much of that. And I appreciate conversations like, like the ones you've had with so many great entrepreneurs, and the conversations I like the learning of life. This, yeah, I don't know.
No, I love that. I think that's such a good definition. And, some of the other ones, I think, that kind of viewpoint, it makes so much more sense to people now, especially after COVID, when they have had everything that they've ever known before taken away from them. And you've kind of had to go back to basics. You really think about, what is success to you? What do I value? And I ask that question to everyone, so it's always really interesting for me to hear what people say. But one was kind of, success is never attainable. It's not a thing. It's the journey that makes you successful, because you learn along the way, which I feel like feeds into what you were saying as well. So yeah, it's really interesting to hear your take on it, and you definitely answered my question. And so to lead on from that, my final question for you, and then I will let you go. But if I put your 10-year-old self in front of you today, that entrepreneurial spirit that you've always had, going through everything that you've been through up to now, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give to him if you could go back?
It would, there's so many things I'd say to little Kieran. There would be. I think it would all group to love first. It would be this idea that, go out into the world, and whether it's kind of running or jumping or being creative or designing or whatever it is, dream big, and dream big, dream ideas so big they don't fit in your head, type of thing, and worry about the rest later, and worry about what people think or what they don't think, or all that kind of stuff. I mean, so I'm 5'8", right? I was the short kid in school, and school for me, it wasn't the most fun. I have to admit, it wasn't the most fun. I was a late developer. I was that guy, and I wore so much of that, and I probably didn't realize how much of that I wore into my ideas, and I wore into my reservations on what I could become. And yeah, if I was reflecting now, I think, yeah, I think I'd probably say just, just go for it, absolutely go for it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's such a powerful piece of advice. And it does relate to so many people, because I think you don't realize, especially when you're in school and things like that, how much you let the outside world or people's opinions infiltrate your ability to do anything. And then I think it's such a shame that we all kind of realize it. It's not so late, in your 20s or whatever, but all of that time wasted when you could have been living to your full potential, I think it's kind of sad. But it's also like part of life to learn all of these things as we go along. But yeah, I think that's a great piece of advice.
Definitely is. And
Thank
that's
you.
that's kind of one of the things that worries me about maybe some of the generation today, which is, consumed by that culture of kind of likability, at actual likes. I'm
Yeah,
fortunate in
yeah.
the sense that when I was 10, I didn't have, I didn't care about Instagram. That wasn't a thing. but I worry about the effects on that, and how that kind of culture grows with creativity, grows with entrepreneurship, grows with everything that sort of surrounds that generation.
I just want to say thank you so much for giving up your morning to chat with me, because it's been so interesting hearing your story and picking your brain and hearing some of your insights on things.
No, thank you for having me. Absolutely, I've really enjoyed it. It's really, really great, and I genuinely enjoy the content that you're putting out. Like, I really do think it's so good. So long may it continue.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share and leave a comment if you like what you hear, and don't forget to follow @whatitslike_pod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Kieran and to shop Duco, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back on Monday with more inspiring stories, but for now, this has been What It's Like with Luce.